Welcome back to episode 175 of the Disorganized Wizards Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm joined as always by Adam.
Hello.
And Cam. And we're a group of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
175 episodes. GZ Pete's.
Yeah.
How have we been out here just talking about Magic for this long? Yeah, a lot going on in this game, I guess. Plus, fun, enjoyable news.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a packed episode this week. We've got our Ikoria top 10, one of everybody's favorite episodes, I think. We also get to talk about the DWC Isolational number 2, which took place this past weekend. We streamed the entire event over at twitch.tv/Disorganized Wizards Club. It was a lot of fun. We had almost 50 players turn out for the event, which was crazy. It was our biggest event to date so far. So thank you, everybody who came and played. It was a lot of fun to cast and run. We had a blast. And the whole event was taken down by friend of the show, Brandon, a.k.a. Blarg, playing Adam's favorite deck in the format, Blue White Blink.
Man, what a comeuppance for me. What an unlucky comeuppance. That Blarg, who's been a longtime member of the Discord and community and just a good dude, who I absolutely dunked on this deck and told him it was unplayable and blah, 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 and hated on it. So, of course, it was fitting that he came in and just absolutely stomped this tournament.
Yeah, he really ran the tables, and we got to watch him a couple times throughout the tournament, and especially in the top 8, there were some wild games.
His match against Simic Ramp was some of the most exciting Magic I've seen in a long time.
It was so swingy. You just all of us were kind of the same thought that, oh, okay, maybe this player's going to win now. And then within a turn, it was completely switched. And it was just back and forth. It was really exciting to watch.
Yeah, they weren't really trading blows so much as they were trading permanents.
Yeah, it was an interesting tournament. Yeah, there was a bunch of mono red, if I remember correctly, right, in the breakdown, although I don't think it did particularly great overall. Am I remembering correctly?
I think mono red was the most played deck in the field at 7 or 8 copies. And I mean, it put 2 copies of the deck into top 8, so it had a decent performance. But both those players
did quite well in the Swiss.
Yeah,
okay.
both those players lost out in the quarters, though, if correct.
Right, it was the tournament before where mono red had a rough one. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, but our top 8 ended up looking like Blue White Blink. We had 2 Rakdos Sack decks, 1 Simic Ramp deck, 1 Teamer Adventures, 2 mono red, and then 1 Sultai midrange deck. And let me tell you,
I think it's unfair to call that a mid-range deck.
Yeah, I'll get there. That Sultai midrange deck is not everybody's, not a normal Sultai midrange deck, let me tell you.
This ain't your grandma's Sultai deck.
It was by far my favorite deck in the field. It was really cool to watch. This player, Kerpler, had an interesting take on Sultai. They built around Dryad of the Elysian Grove and Dread Presence, as well as Bolas's Citadel, which all came together for some really, really sweet turns.
It seemed so junky at first when you're like, well, look at this weird 3-card combo of Dryad of the Elysian Grove, Dread Presence, Bolas Citadel, and then you see it in action, how it played out in games. You're like, wait, this is insane. It was so good.
Yeah. I think he was one of our last 2 undefeated players going into the final round of Swiss, if I'm remembering correct. Yeah, it was him and Mono Red going into round 6 at undefeated.
And I believe
Swiss?
No, I think he lost to the Mono Red player in round 6.
I believe so, yeah. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it was something like that. We had him on coverage a few times because he was just on a tear with this brew. It was really cool to see. Yeah, the Isolationals have had some crazy tournaments. I still can't believe Blue White Blink won it. That's wild. Standard is wild right now. That deck, and it looked like it was just smashing. It looked like, okay, so for those that are kind of out of touch with Standard, I think Standard in a lot of ways is still in this really weird position of having an arms race take place in mid-range decks, but then the low to the ground decks still are fairly aggressive. So I don't know, Standard can play out kind of weird, and I guess Blue Eye Blink and this Sultai Brew sort of lined up well against the rest of the format for this tournament because they looked great.
Oh, yeah.
They both kind of lined up against the format in similar ways. So if you accept that there's an arms race happening amongst the mid-range decks, and then to take advantage of that, aggressive decks are showing up to get under all these mid-range decks going bigger and bigger, both this Dread Presence deck and the Blue-White Blink deck brought very large, powerful end games in either Bolas's Citadel turns or blinking Agent of Treacheries. But they also had incidental life gain to combat the aggro decks. In Dread Presence can shock and gain 2. The Blue-White Blink deck is just playing a bunch of ETB life gain stuff. So they sort of attack both ways people approach this tournament.
Yeah, I felt like Agent of Treachery, though, came down to, it was sort of the trump card for all these matchups. It would look so good against the mid-range decks. Kerpler on Sultai, who joked in chat after losing in the top 8, said, this has to be my worst matchup. Just, I think, specifically talking about the power of Agent of Treachery and Thassa, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that Blue-White Blink deck is a horrible matchup for the normal Sultai mid-range decks, and this deck was no exception. Even though he had a bit of a different build, it still just, your cards just line up horribly versus Thassa. You just can never deal with that card.
Yeah, Thassa's a scary card.
But yeah, the event was a ton of fun. Be on the lookout for the next organizational now that Ikoria is coming out soon. We'll have an announcement about that very, very soon. Keep your eyes open. And before we hop into our top 10 for Ikoria, just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, wizardtower.com. Check them out for all your Magic single needs. Pre-orders for Ikoria are up on their website now. If you're looking to get involved in some weekly Magic events, you can join their Discord. They're putting on weekly events through MTG Melee. So definitely check that out. And also, we have a pretty huge announcement, as yours truly, the DWC squad, was accepted to be part of the streamer early access event next week, April 15th for Ikoria. So we're going to be streaming the entire 15th, playing some new Ikoria cards on an account provided to us by Watsy. It's going to be a ton of fun. Ship us your brews if you want to see us play some sweet decks. We're going to be brewing all week, getting ready for this event. It's going to be a ton of fun. Really excited to finally be a part of one of these events. Really looking forward to it.
Oh, speaking of playing some brews, if people are interested, oh my God, I reminded of the hellish experience I had on stream a couple days ago playing historic brews. Oh my God. Do you remember?
Oh, I remember.
Oh, I kept a notepad up of decks I was going to play that people had suggested that I should play in historic, and they're all meme decks, and I said I would play 10 games with each deck. Let me tell you, it was a tough one out there. I was collecting. It was a ranked tankers for sure, and I played ranked because I wanted to play against at least real-ish decks.
Did you?
So I went 0-10 with Treasure Hunt, obviously.
Yeah, that was to start the stream off, right?
Oh yeah. Those games were quick at least. That maybe took about 10 minutes, about a minute a match because I just conceded really quickly.
Yeah,
I've looked at that deck list though. How does it lose?
So
You just make
to be fair, we kind of punted our original first 5 games, so I might have to go back in for the redemption play on that deck because we didn't add Mystic Sanctuary till later, and that card is busted in that deck. Because you just get all your lands with Treasure Hunt, and then you get a Mystic Sanctuary, and you can make sure you always get them, Treasure Hunt back. Problem is, Historic this is what I learned from playing it, because apparently I just played it so much, is just a hyper linear format right now. Everyone just plays drool aggro, and so you're not really capable of playing kind of weird combo-y decks because the aggro decks will just turn for you in this format. It's kind of.
I remember I was still at work when I saw that you were starting the stream, so I opened up the stream on my phone to see you starting a match. Your opening hand comes up, and I just see Nyx Fleece Ram, Riptide Turtle, Teferi Time Raveler. I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, did I win that game?
Oh yeah, you won that game.
Oh yeah, that deck was nuts. I went 7-3 with High Alert for anyone interested. I don't know how, but it was the best performing deck. I brewed a deck I thought was really sweet. I brewed with Hemsley actually. We brewed what was it? Grixis discard, fake news with a bunch of Croxes, but with Waste Knot, 4 Waste Knots.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, Waste Not's crazy on turn 2, but that deck sucked. We just the Grixis deck just couldn't compete. It just didn't do anything. But I think it finished going 3 or 4 and 6 maybe. But yeah, for whatever reason, man, I don't know what to tell you. For whatever reason, the high alert deck just got wins. Maybe because Nyx Fleece Ram is something else.
Yeah, you're playing a 2-mana 5/5 that gains a life every turn.
You just kept getting
5/5.
You kept getting paired against aggro decks or the mono white life gain deck, and you just play walls and then solar blaze them out of the game.
Yeah, that was the Galaxy Brain deck building decision I made. I couldn't believe I even remembered that card existed. I was like, wait, isn't there a card that assigns damage? And when I was building the deck, and then I was like, oh my god, we can play the Cyclops. I did get to combo somebody too. It's clipped. I almost want to put it with the show notes or something when we post it. That clip where I got the guy with the Fae of Wishes for Aegis of the Heavens out of the sideboard to cast it on my Cyclops to make it a 15 power and kill the guy.
Yeah, that was so good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty sure that happened in the first match I watched. So it was a good start.
Yeah, that deck was a lot of fun, even if it was probably, it's not good. It was enjoyable. I had a good time.
But yeah, with that, let's hop into our Ikoria top 10. Do you guys want to start off with honorable mentions, or do you want to just jump right into it?
Let's do
Start with some honorable mentions.
Cool. All right. Honorable mention number 1, Hunted Nightmare. Who put this card on us? What is this card?
That's the 3-mana 4/5 that it's 2 black, 1 menace. When it enters the battlefield, you put a menace counter on an opponent's creature. But I mean, a 3-mana 4/5, this thing just has to see plain aggressive decks, right?
You put a death touch counter on your opponent's creature.
Or sorry, not a menace counter. My bad. I misspoke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Giving them a death touch. Giving them a death touch counter is fine when you have menace on your guy. It's not so bad, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's only 3 mana, so you'll have some extra mana kicking around to remove whatever they put death touch on. You might even get blowouts in combat with this. It has menace, so you attack. They have to block with whatever they gave death touch. And the other thing, you just remove the death touch thing, eat the other creature. It's just so many stats.
Yeah, I think it's massive. And as people know from our previous spoiler episodes, we tend not to put on cards in our top 10 that are obviously busted. Sometimes that happens just because we're still interested, but generally we look for pretty cool cards, things that are unique, things you can brew around, stuff like that.
Yeah, I like this card. It competes in the 3-drop slot in black aggro decks with Rotting Regisaur. I assume you'd probably just play a mix of both.
Yeah, you could just play those as a top end if you really wanted. There might end up being some mono black aggro deck that just has 1, 2, 3 as its curve, and its curve ends in Hunted Nightmare and Rotting Regisaur.
Yeah, there's definitely some potential here.
There's another card here that we didn't have on our honorable mentions, but that I can see on the spoiler screen that we should have mentioned as well, which is I don't think it was on our list. Bastion of Remembrance. I think this card's really good. You pointed it out before, Stelly. It's just Blood Artist for an extra mana that sticks around.
Yeah, so enchantment. I actually really like this card as well, and I meant to put it on our honorable mentions. I think having you generally pay 2 mana for this sort of effect. In the past, this effect has always been on those 2 mana creatures, right? Zulaport Cutthroat, Blood Artist, Cruel Celebrant is the one that's in standard right now. And you still get a body for paying 1 more mana, but it's also just way harder to interact with this permanent than it is to deal with, those 1/1 or 1/2 bodies. And I do think this might be the, extra piece, the extra effect that these aristocrat decks needed to, really push them into maybe tier 1 or tier 2 of the format.
Yeah, I agree. I even think this could open up new deck building possibilities. I think it's so good that it could open up possibilities along spaces of Abzan tokens, where you're playing something like March of the Multitudes, Trostani, and Bastion of Remembrance, right? Because it triggers on creatures dying, not just non-token creatures, right?
Yeah, exactly, which is a huge nod towards this, because generally we see with these effects is they only trigger on when your non-token creatures die, but allowing it to trigger on token creatures as well, like you're alluding to, that's pretty huge game. Very, very huge game.
I think that there is actually legitimately potential for some even black-white tokens. There's a bunch of, raising alarms in the format. And, raising alarms, nothing to scoff at in standard. It has pedigree in the past. It's seen play. There are other token generators. Black-white has some pretty interesting options.
Yeah, Black-white has 2 mono-white 1-drops that when they die, they create a token.
Yeah, because they got the new cat, right? And then also Hunted Witness.
Yeah, exactly. There's something there. There's definitely something there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can even play like Venerated Loxodon in this deck, like black-white tokens, and you get interesting things. Like if you get put in a rough spot, you can play, what's the 2-mana removal spell from where you sack or you pay 5 life?
Oh, Final Payment.
Yeah, Final Payment, probably not bad in that deck.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there just an upgrade to Final Payment in this set?
I think there is. There's probably upgrades, but I don't know if we want to sack or...
Yeah, I'm going to keep my eye on this one, and I already quickly brewed up a list that I wanted to try next week, but I like the idea of playing Abzan tokens. You could play like Amara, you could play those white 1-drops, March of the Multitudes,
Yeah, and you kind of solve a lot of problems you would normally have against control, because I think that those are the hard matchups for those decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least historically, it felt that way to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
and this gives you... the idea. Bastion just changes the game.
Mm-hmm. And then you have Cruel Celebrant as well, which is now you have 8 copies of a similar effect like this. I don't think Cruel Celebrant triggers on tokens though.
I can't remember, but you have Cruel Celebrant, you have Bastion, you have all these 1-drops. Even if you don't play Amara, even if you don't play Abzan, just black-white has a lot of options actually against control. I mean, you just boarded Dawn of Hope. It makes your Dawn of Hopes better. It makes your Dawn of Hopes absurd if they kill your creatures.
Oh, Cruel Celebrant triggers on tokens as well.
Yeah, like this black-white. I don't even know if you want green because you want your mana to be untapped, I assume, if we're playing all these 1 and 2 drops. But yeah, there might be something with a black-white tokens deck or an Abzan tokens deck. I think there's lots of options with that Bastion of Remembrance on its own unlocks. Maybe this card should have been in our top 10 act.
Yeah, now that we're kind of talking about it more, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, I feel like it should have been on our top 10. This is such a good honorable mention because I think the potential deck building that this thing enables is really important instead.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I definitely agree. Another honorable mention we have on our list is the Triome cycle, which, if people aren't aware, they spoiled the new rare land cycle for this set. They are the Triome lands. They're lands that produce 3 colors of mana. There's 1 for each of the wedges in the set. There's a Jeskai 1, a Sultai 1, a Mardu 1, Temur, and Abzan. All of the lands enter tapped, but they all have basic land types, and they also all have cycling 3.
Yeah, that's the real killer, that they all have basic land types is wild.
Yeah, so I mean, not fetchable in standard as we don't have fetch lands, but cycling 3 is huge as well. These obviously have
lands.
These cards are going to see a ton of play, not only in standard, but I think they're going to see some Pioneer play as well. There's decks that want it, like the Sultai Uro decks. Obviously, these are all huge Commander staples as well.
I was gonna say, these are also just massive Commander staples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We considered putting them in our top 10, but I think they're a lot better on the honorable mentions. Like we decided, very, very good cycle of lands.
Yeah, it's just they're so obviously busted that we didn't include them, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, honorable mention, we have Heartless Act, which is 1 in a black instant. Choose 1, destroy target creature with no counters on it, or remove up to 3 counters from target creature.
This is going to be quite good. It's just a 2-mana removal spell that, early in the game kills everything because things that are staying alive because of counters are usually people are talking about Hangerback Walker and Ballista, removing 3 counters kills those early. Most things that have been seeing play in standard don't have counters on it, so it just kills anything. Just a very solid, flexible 2-mana removal spell at instant as well. And yeah.
I mean, I didn't think they'd reprint Doomblade, but here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
This, I feel like this version of the 2-mana black instant removal, it's better than most versions of this card, right? Like I think it's better than Go for the Throat. Like I don't know if I'd say it's better than Doomblade, but it's close, I think.
I think it's really good. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. It's kind of funny to think about too. Like it's probably way worse in limited than it is in constructed, which doesn't happen often with cards.
Yeah, there's a lot of removal in this limited set. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to play this limited format. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
when I was looking through the spoilers to try and pick out cards for standard, I was kind of having a tough time just because, like, mutate and some of these other mechanics are like they feel sort of hard to evaluate to me until I play with them because I just really haven't seen anything that works quite like they do. But that did make me like very excited to play limited because you can kind of already start to see the like draft arounds and the enablers and the like cards that let you mutate on and like all these synergies that you have to consider. So this looks like it'll be a super fun draft format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Another honorable mention on our list, Kenan Von Der Prodigy. It's a 2-mana 2/2 legendary creature human druid. Costs a green and a blue. It reads, whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of any type that permanent's produced. And it has a 7-mana active ability. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a non-human creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I'm thinking this card will see a lot more play in something like Modern or Pioneer than it will in Standard. And I think it'll be very, very good in Modern. Plays incredibly well with Mox Amber. Plays incredibly well with Arkham's Astrolabe. Any 1 mana, like Gilded Goose. There's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for abuse here. I mean, it's a cheating on mana, right? So you know that there's abuse. But
I mean, it's got similar formatting to Urza, right? Like an accelerated mana ability into a payoff to dump that mana into that like is a form of card advantage. So just a very strong card.
Yeah, when I saw this card originally, I was like, oh, this card's probably really good with Urza, but it actually doesn't work with Urza, funny enough. Because Urza's the card that adds mana. Even though Urza taps something, Urza's the card that adds mana. And since Urza isn't tapping, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. But it's very good with all the other cards in the Urza deck. It works really well with, so probably still good. All right, another honorable mention, Zerta the Dawnwaker. This is one of the new companion cards. Costs 3 mana, 3/3 legendary creature, Elemental Fox. Costs 1 and 2 hybrid Boros mana. Companion. Each permanent card in your starting deck has an activated ability. And then abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana in that cost to less than 1 mana. And it has its own activated ability of 1 tap. Target creature can't block this turn.
Yeah, so I just think, again, like this is a card that just has potential for abuse, which is why it's on the list. It's just something to look out for. I don't know what the exact brew looks like, but this is a card that just has to have abuse potential, right?
Mm-hmm. I think the no-brainer is something we talked about in the pre-show is for Legacy, combining it with Grim Monolith or Basalt Monolith for infinite mana immediately. Yep. I'm sure there's a lot of other things you can do with it that I can't think of because I don't really play those older formats, but those were the first ones.
It's not even just being like, because this is the kind of card that even if you played those older formats, Lord knows what this deck looks like because this is such a weird effect, right? Which is why I find it interesting.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. I almost think we should have put Gyruda on our honorable mentions too. I think that card's cool.
Gyruda.
The Doom of Death.
Oh yeah, that's the even converted mana cost companion, eh?
Yeah, I think that could do some damage.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird, but it could be pretty strong actually.
Yeah. We also have Skycat Sovereign on our honorable mentions list. This is one, Adam, you are brought to the table for your top 10. 2 mana 1/1 flying elemental cat for a white and a blue. Skycat Sovereign gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with flying, and it's 4 mana activated ability to create a 1/1 white cat bird creature token with flying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think the blue-white flyers deck was like pretty close and could potentially be close. Like there's potentially something here. The fact that you can just make creatures and sit behind this thing, that it gets bigger, that you could mutate things onto it. Like it's an early flyer that gets some advantage, and you can mutate things onto it, like the octopus card or various other things that make it pretty helpful.
I am hoping I open this thing in sealed and that my opponents don't. Because it's exactly just like the limited powerhouse card that you can't beat. Like it just gets huge, makes bodies. Like what doesn't it?
Yeah, you're never beating this card in limited. Oh, there's a lot of removal, but it's really good. It's really good for sure. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of like really interesting effects and builder outs in this set. I feel like.
Last two honorable mentions. We have Winota, Joiner of Forces, 4 mana, legendary creature, human warrior. It's a 4/4, costs 2 and a red and a white mana. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. That's a lot of text.
It's a lot of text, and like I don't know if it's actually going to see play. I just think like it's card advantage in a form that's really unique, and for aggressive Boros decks that don't usually have card advantage. The fact that the creature you put into play gets indestructible makes it read like drawing a card to me because that's going to stick around.
Yeah,
and I also like how usually the like powerful wordy effects on red-white cards like have to wait a turn. Like if you play a feather on 3, you have to untap to use Feather's ability. But if you play a feather on 3 and then Winota on 4, feather attacking triggers this. So the fact that you can play this pre-combat and having built your deck correctly, immediately get a trigger. So it's like 2 bodies on turn 4, one of which is indestructible and attacking. Just looks like a very powerful and unique effect for aggressive decks.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can potentially get away with a lot with this card. And you could have the casting costs a little higher even, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could be cheating in huge stuff. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. Could be anything.
And wrapping up honorable mentions, we have Titan's Nest. It's a 4 mana enchantment. It costs 1, a black, a green, and a blue. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. Exile a card from your graveyard. Add a colorless mana. Spend this mana only to cast a colored spell without X in its mana cost. So essentially, just give all your colored spells delve.
Yeah, essentially. One of the things that so the only thing I thought about this card quite a bit in going over, our lists. One of the only problems I have with this card is that it costs 4. If it costs 3, I'd say we could really go to work with this card.
Yeah, 4 is a lot, especially in standard for a card that doesn't like immediately do something, like doesn't have an effect immediately. Like if we're thinking about 4 mana enchantments, like Wilderness Reclamation immediately gives you the mana back, so it's kind of free. Same thing with Fires of Invention, because you can follow it up immediately with a 4-drop creature. This, you play it, and then you have to untap with it to really do anything with it, and it requires you to set up in the early turns, like getting cards into your graveyard, so you can really take advantage of it. So, like, how many good enablers do you have to have? I don't know. Obviously, like, the ceiling on this card is pretty high. Delve is busted.
Yeah, if you set up for this and pop off, it's just nuts, which is why this is an honorable mention, because it's a mana mechanic, and it just... cheating on mana, like in any way, really, can become incredibly powerful.
Yeah,
but there's like some risks inherent.
Yeah, some other things that are interesting about Titan's Nest too is that there are actually quite a few ways to dump things into your graveyard, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And there's some new stuff that dumps cards in your graveyard. So yeah, you can actually potentially do quite a bit with this card. But getting there might be hard. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to sort of mention on this card and contrast to 2 other cards that we're about to talk about, sort of in this cycle of enchantments, and probably why this is an honorable mention and not on our list, is that in multiples, it's kind of the secondary effect that doubles up. Like the ability to delve doesn't double if you have 2 of these. It's just the beginning of your upkeep thing. But the 2 cards we're about to talk about, really the most powerful parts of those cards do double when you play them. So that's another thing to look for in these types of enchantments, is how good they are in multiples. And Titan's Nest kind of fails that test.
All right. Well, with that wraps up our honorable mention. So let's hop right into our top 10.
Oh, sorry, but I'm going to make this awkward. One thing before we do this, I just have one question.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? What are our thoughts on Narset? Because this is another top 10 where we're just ignoring Planeswalkers, right?
Well, we have one. We have one on our list.
Yeah, true. But I mean, yeah.
Narset, I'm just not impressed. I don't know. I'm having a hard time imagining a deck that wants it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I can't tell. I feel like this card is just hard to cast and a downgrade from the normal Planeswalker of plus draw a card, minus kill something, whatever. The minus is pretty good, but the plus is...
Like, I would believe if you spoiled this card and told me it was in the Jeskai theme starter deck for this set.
Yeah, it's one of the medium Planeswalkers they include in those.
Yeah, the bad version of another Planeswalker in the set. I would believe you if you had showed me this card and told me that's what it was. Like, the plus, gaining 2 life is nice, but it's just mana, but then you still need something else to use that mana with. And then the minus, only does damage if you're discarding something big, which presumably you want to use the mana from the plus for, so it's fighting with itself. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not really a fan of it, but I could be proven wrong.
Yeah, I think it's not good. I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it is Narset of the ancient way, and the ancient way of Magic is for non-creature spell, or is for permanents to be very bad.
Yeah, true.
All right. So this time, let's actually hop into our top 10. Kicking it off number 10, Adam, you take this one.
Okay, Death's Oasis. This is Abzan colors, so 1 white, 1 green, 1 black. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then return a creature card with lesser converted mana cost than the creature that died from your graveyard to your hand. It also has added ability of pay 1, sacrifice Death's Oasis. You gain life equal to the greatest converted mana cost among creatures you control. The last text there I'm not really interested in. It's more so the beginning of whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you put the top 2 cards of your library, then return a creature card with lesser converted mana cost. I think this is pretty interesting for what you could potentially do with this card.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really know what a Death's Oasis deck would look like, but...
No idea.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about. I do like this card.
And if there is some Abzan sacrifice deck that involves some of the newer cards or, some of the ones that potentially are going to show up on our list here that I don't want to spoil, but also, even just Midnight Reaper, you get to draw cards, then return something, then do a bunch of other stuff, it's potential. If you're playing all those 1-drops we're talking about with something like Cruel Celebrant, Cruel Celebrant dies, you bring back a 1-drop that also makes a token when it dies. Yeah, I just think that this kind of changed things. It enables graveyard synergies, and you could potentially play 4-color and abuse this thing with something like Uro. It's really interesting, or Kroxa, if you can somehow make this work. Because they die, right? Like the Titans die.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, if you were in a 4-color Death's Oasis deck, I know it sounds wild, but we have these tri-lands, and Uro putting in tri-lands seems crazy, and then your Uro puts in a land and then gets back a 2-drop and draws a card and then mills 2 cards in the graveyard for itself off Death's Oasis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, you have Gilded Goose, so you can get this out on turn 2 into an Uro next turn, and then Uro die. But, you don't have anything in the bin yet. But, I mean, later in the game, you can start grinding. It mills. Maybe
it mills too.
Yeah, it mills too. So it self-enables. It could be really bad, which is why we put it at 10. But it has some pretty cool synergies, like the synergies with the Titans. I know you're asking a lot in a 4-color deck. Maybe. I mean, mana might end up that isn't that bad, right?
Yeah, who really knows how big of an effect the tri-lands are going to have. But
another thing I just thought of is that there are some mutate creatures in this set whose mutate cost is cheaper than their actual cost. So if you mutate onto something already on the battlefield and choose to put that creature on top, its CMC is now probably higher than whatever you mutated onto. So when it dies, you sort of recoup the lost card advantage for mutating. You get the bottom creature back.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you can do some really tricky stuff with this card, I think. Yeah, I think it has a lot of potential. It just might be too clunky and slow, but it's pretty powerful that it just reanimates. Well, not reanimates, gets them back to your hand. But I mean, they're going to be cheap stuff theoretically.
Yeah, and I mean, this card does only cost 3 mana for an enchantment, right? Like, it's not a 4 or 5 mana enchantment, so you can play it relatively early.
Yeah, and the fact that you draw multiples, you can just either try and get multiple triggers, or you can sack it to gain life. You know, like it has some utility. So I think it's like a pretty interesting number 10 pick for a build around brew.
Yeah, I agree. I like it. I would love to see a sweet Death's Oasis deck be good in Standard. That would make me very happy.
Yeah, I think it definitely involves something like Uro, just to get the free triggers. Yeah,
I would love to see it. Number 9 on our list. Another enchantment, Song of Creation. 4 mana, costs 1, green, blue, and red. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. At the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. This card has some pretty serious combo potential, and I don't think this thing's going to be doing anything fair. And I'm all about it.
Yeah, God, no. This card is just designed to be obnoxious. The fact that you get to play an additional land card is just outrageous.
Yeah, I just want to put like 30 lands into my deck, play a bunch of adventure creatures, play Uro, play Boreal Grazer, and just go ham. See if we can draw our deck.
How this lines up with adventure creatures is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that they just sit on exile while you discard your hand. You don't really care. It's really powerful. I'm curious about seeing it with something like Experimental Frenzy as well, both in the same deck where you just play your whole deck.
Yeah, I was skeptical about Song of Creation at first, thinking that the discard your hand was too risky. Like, what if you draw something you can't cast the next turn? You have to skip a turn. But then, this Experimental Frenzy is a similar card popped up on Mythic Spoiler, and you mentioned it as well. Experimental Frenzy also basically has you discard your hand. You can get access to it later, but while it's out, you don't. And similarly, like, it whiffs if you hit 2 lands in a row, but just when they don't whiff, the amount of cards that they pull out of your library is like so immense that they're worth playing.
Yeah, I meant like you're going to be ramping so fast playing an additional land each turn, especially if you're playing like Grazers and Uro as well. I imagine you'll just end up drawing your entire deck relatively quickly with all the mana you have access to, and then you could do cool stuff like Fae of Wishes for like a Jace out of the sideboard, or maybe a Thassa's Oracle, or like there's obviously some other cards you could play if you're looking at older formats as well. Like there's definitely something here.
Jace and Thassa's Oracle are too boring. We're just getting like a clear the mind, and we're shuffling it all back, and we're doing it again.
Let's do it again.
Run it back, baby. Run it back. One of the, again, this is so greedy, but this stupid Tri-lands are going to bait me into doing some really dumb things. But this card, I think, is hilarious to play an 8 Titan deck. So because you discard your hand, you're just going to churn through your deck. If we splash black and we just play 4 Uro, 4 Crocs. Hear me out. You discard your hand, right? But that's good.
That's what we want to do.
We're just gonna cast, and then you play Lazov too, and you just play a 12 Titan deck, and this fuels it, right? 12 Titan Adventures.
We'll try it.
I mean, I'm willing to try anything.
That sounds like the name of a really cheesy like kids cartoon show.
Oh yeah.
You know, I already mentioned how good this is with adventure creatures, but like I honestly think just like straight up Teamer Clover would play 1 or 2 copies of this card in its flex slot. Like it's super good with all those adventure creatures. It's really good with Escape to the Wilds.
Does this just replace Escape potentially?
I don't know. Like it's good with it, right? Like you cast Escape, you draw 2 cards, you draw. How many cards do you draw with Escape? Like 7?
5, I think. I'm pretty sure it's 5.
Yeah, you exile 5 and you can play them for like a turn and a half, 2 turns.
And you can play an additional land so you can go crazy.
Yeah, so you're just playing like all these lands, ramping really quick. I don't know. I think this card's going to be pretty cool and really fun to play with, and probably very busted.
Yeah, I agree.
A potential banger, the Song of Creation.
All right. Number 8, Cam.
All right, this is Cheville, Bane of Monsters. It costs 2 mana, black and green. It's a legendary creature, human rogue. It's a 1/3. It's got death touch. And then the interesting part is that at the beginning of your upkeep, if your opponents control no permanents with bounty counters on them, you can put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. So if there's no bounties out, you get to bounty planeswalker or creature. And then the second line of text is that whenever a permanent an opponent controls that has a bounty counter on it dies, you gain 3 life and you draw a card. So he's out here just hunting.
This card is going to be a nightmare for aggro decks to deal with, I imagine.
This is a card that historically I would have just ignored and thought was just like a complete junker. But the more I thought about it, these kind of early snowball-y plays in Standard can be really, really powerful and really, really impactful on the state and shape of the game and how it plays out. And it's in the colors that want to just remove stuff one by one. The fact that you put a bounty counter on something and kill it, and then it dies, and you gain 3 and draw a card. I mean, that's insane. It lines up a lot better against control than you even think. It can kill a Teferi and Narset and then draw a card. It's actually a potentially really, really powerful card. In mid-range mirrors, I feel like this card is just a dominant force, right?
Yeah, it's just like an early creature that just becomes a must answer.
Right. It's a 2-drop that in a mid-range, if you're playing black-green mid-range or whatever, or Sultai, let's say you're playing the Sultai mid-range deck, and you play this card, they have to answer this. Or if you resolve a Casualties of War later when you have more mana and this is in play, you're going to get everything and draw cards and gain life off it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think that this card has way more potential than I think it seems at first. It could be really bad. I don't know, but I used to dismiss kind of cards like this. But in Standard, yeah, I think these snowbally cards are pretty good sometimes.
I also like just how interesting it's going to be to play with and against, because if it's like how hyper modal it is, like because it has death touch, it gives the bounty counter so much play. Like if you don't want to get attacked by something, put a bounty counter on it. They're not going to attack into a death touch creature with it and give you the trigger. Or like maybe you want them to kill one of their creatures, so you put a bounty counter on their planeswalker and you attack with Cheville. Like there's just so much going on.
Yeah, and it doesn't die to Stomp from the Bone Crusher Giant, which is a big deal. So
yeah,
I mean, you can't be a Bane of Monsters if you're getting stomped on.
Yeah, notably, like the mono red deck just like doesn't have a deal 3 in their main deck, so it's gonna stonewall them off pretty early, which is great, and probably trade for 2 cards out of them, and then draw you a card as well. So
and gain you life.
Yeah, like it just does everything.
Yeah, it seems. I don't know. Like this card seems really strong to me.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I'm all about black-green mythics, man. Let me tell you.
Also, I mean, this is a card that you play in the Death's Oasis deck if you want it, even and you can get it back later when it dies. When your 3-drop style, like if let's say your Uro dies, you can get this back. Like, that's pretty cool card. Pretty cool. I hate when there's two mana mythics though. Creatures, not a big fan. But what are you gonna do?
Adam, you can take number 6.
Yeah, this is General Kudrow of Drannith. It's white, black 1, so 3 mana for a 3/3 legendary creature, human soldier. Got a lot of text on this thing. So other humans you control get +1/+1. Whenever General Kudrow of Drannith or another human enters the battlefield under your control, exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. And then it also has, you can pay 2 colorless, sacrifice 2 humans, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater as an activated ability on it. So a lot of text on this card. This card, as you pointed out, Stelly, probably just is an upgrade in modern humans. I think I agree.
Yeah, like tagging graveyards is a very desirable effect in a format like Modern. And you get to do it not only when you play it, so it has an immediate effect. You also, for every other human you put into play. And then also it has another immediate effect of just buffing all your humans. The last ability probably won't come up as often as the other 2. Like it won't be as relevant as the first 2 abilities, but still has other more reach as well. Maybe this card is good enough in Standard too. Like notably, we have a lot of knights in the format right now, which all are also humans in a lot of cases. So this kind of acts as a lord for those decks. It's black-white, so it kind of fits into the whole Mardu like knight theme already.
Yeah, and cards like Tyrannus are human, Hunted Witness. If we're playing I wonder, so Cruel Celebrant's a human, right?
It's a vampire.
The 3-man enchantment. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Rats.
Yeah.
If it was wholly the black-white deck. But the rest of the black-white deck, you might be able to get enough humans that this potentially sees play. But yeah, there's places in Standard. Yeah, like you said, there's a bunch of knights that are incidentally humans. There's a bunch of humans in Standard anyway.
Yeah, and also there's just a lot of good cards that end up in graveyards right now in Standard that you would want to tag. Like
yeah, exactly.
Urros, Croxes, Cats, Planeswalkers that could be brought back with ECD. Like they're...
Yeah, and you can activate a Castle Ardenvale to instant speed, get something out of the graveyard, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this card's going to be very good, and we'll see play beyond just Standard. So a lot of potential here. All right, moving up the list. Number 5, another companion card, Lurrus of the Dream Den. It's 3 mana, 3/2, costs 1 and 2 hybrid black-white mana for legendary creature Cat Nightmare. Companion. Each permanent card in your starting deck has converted mana cost 2 or less. It has lifelink, and during each of your turns, you may cast 1 permanent spell with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard. I think this is the best companion in the entire set, and I think it's going to be very, very good in Eternal formats like Legacy and Modern.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is where that thing has a home. I don't think you can build a deck in Standard, although people are going to try, of course. You got to try.
Seems like a little too underpowered for Standard, as, you know, your entire deck, the permanents only being 1 or 2 mana. Like, the power of your more expensive spells isn't really going to make up for that downside, I think.
Yeah, I agree
that the companion is probably not going to be used if this sees play in Standard, but I'm not convinced that you don't just put 4 on your main deck and play like some more expensive things and cast this and a 2-drop on turn 5.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah, it still has upside even if you don't have the companion build around too, which is, something worth paying attention to for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about something like older formats where you have access to Opal or other weird things. So
yeah, doesn't Ad Nauseam Tendrils and Legacy just automatically play this card? Isn't this card like very good for them?
I can't decide because I don't know what you would cut.
Well, you don't have to cut anything. It goes in your sideboard. That's the thing, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you just well, you're right. Yeah. I guess, can you pay 3 and resolve? Yeah.
You just crack your Lion's Eye, play this, cast your Lion's Eye again.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, never mind. That's really abusable. Yeah, I should have known you can cast stuff from your graveyard. It's in Eternal format, and this can cast from outside the game. Yeah, this card is probably dumb.
Yeah, like in a format like Modern, like you probably want maybe in a Death Shadow deck. Like that seems good. You obviously don't get to play Gurmag Angler anymore, but maybe you just play like Abzan or Jund Shadow, play Tarmogoyfs. You still get to play like Kolaghan's Command because this only requires you to play permanent cards with 2 less mana in their cost.
Yeah, so you can still play your Force Negations, which is a big plus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Death Shadow is like the obvious thing that a lot of people have been discussing, and I wouldn't be surprised if it did end up in Death Shadow's lists, but having to sacrifice Street Wraith might be too much.
Yeah,
and you have a lifelink creature that you don't want to attack with, or it shrinks your shadows. Like, I see the synergy, but I also see how it's kind of awkward with the way current Death Shadow in Modern is constructed.
Yeah, I agree there. Losing Street Wraith is a huge deal. I've heard people
it might be worth it. We'd have to see how it shapes up with, you know what I mean? Like, if that kind of grindy value of getting back shadows is worth it, yeah.
I've heard people talk about this being playable in Modern Burn as well. So you can recast like your early 1 and 2 mana threats if they get dealt with. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, and then on top of that, it's hilariously good in the Burn Mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, a lot of potential for this card, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of potential. And that's usually what we like to do with the top 10 lists, right? Is look at cards that have tons of potential.
Yeah, it's definitely very sweet.
Oh, speaking of sweet and potential that we didn't put on the honorable mentions, we blew it.
What?
We didn't put Sharknado on there.
Oh, no, I know. I even tweeted about that card. Man.
We blew it.
Yeah, you're talking about Shark Typhoon. That card is awesome.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah, but let's keep going. Cam, you can grab this guy.
Something better than sharks. This is Sea Dasher Octopus. Normally it costs 3, 1 blue for a 2/2 creature octopus. It has flash, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. But the kind of interesting part is that this also has mutate for 1 and a blue. So just kind of on the front side, you can flash it in end of turn if maybe after a counter spell, or if your opponent hasn't done anything to make a 2/2 that you can then untap and draw a card. But being kind of an enchantment on, like, say, a flyer that's attacking or something else that has unblockable, and just stacking up keywords, playing sort of a boggle type strategy with card advantage could make this very powerful. Like, we've seen mono blue with Curious Obsessions do well in the past format, and that deck had more powerful tools to protect a creature with Curious Obsession on it, but Curious Obsession had to be cast at sorcery speed, and you always had to attack. There was some downside to it. While this might not be as easily protected, the flexibility of when you can cast this might make up for it.
Yeah, because you can flash this in combat, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that is a lot. Yeah, that's pretty powerful, to start drawing cards. It could do some work, I agree.
Yeah, and also, like, it can just be a 2/2 on its own if you don't have a creature to mutate it onto, which you couldn't do with Curious Obsession, obviously. And, like, also, when it comes to the mutate cards, the cheapest mutate ability we have, like, is 2 mana, right? Like, generally, all these for cards to mutate, it costs like 3, 4, 5 mana or more. And being 2 mana to mutate, I think, pushes this kind of beyond, where you would automatically put a card like this, like a tempo, flyers, evasive, like blue strategy like that, into like just being good in maybe a bigger, like, mid-range deck where you have bigger mutate creatures, just so you can get multiple mutates for cheap out of your bigger, maybe apex mutate creatures, something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 2 mana trigger of some other bigger thing. Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What can we put this on that has double strike? I just want to draw 2 cards.
Snapdax or whatever it's called.
Yeah, if we're playing 4 mana again, four colors again, yeah.
4 colors is the truth.
Coming back, we got Tri-lands.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, Adam, number 4.
Oh, yeah. Vivian, Monsters Advocate. Speaking of experimental frenzy. All right, this is a 5 mana green planeswalker. It costs 3 green. It has a static ability, but not in the sort of obnoxious way you're used to with something like Teferi or Narset. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. It comes in with 3 starting loyalty. Its +1 is create a 3/3 green beast creature token, and then you put your choice of a vigilance counter, a reach counter, or a trample counter on it. Its -2 is when you cast your next creature spell this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser converted mana cost, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle your library.
I think this card is incredibly good. The only thing it has going against it is that it's 5 mana, which fights for slots with Nissa, who shakes the world.
Yeah, it's tough to... I mean, as long as Nissa remains in the format, it might be just impossible for this card to see play. But having said that, there might be decks that want this instead. The fact that you can cast creature spells from the top of your library is insane to me. I think this is so powerful. I think this has potential in something like, theoretically, maybe even mono green in Pioneer.
Yeah, maybe.
Because you can ramp this out really, really fast. And with Nykthos, you can just start playing things from the top of your library. Like it's quite interesting to me.
That -2 ability is going to be so powerful in something like Standard.
Yes, and the fact that it just makes 3/3s every turn, like old. What was the Garrick? I loved Garrick Primal Speaker or whatever, Primal Hunter or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just plussed and made 3/3s. This feels similar to Garrick Primal Hunter, and that's one of my all-time favorite planeswalkers.
Yeah, I just like, oh man, like, just imagine like playing this and then casting like a Cavalier of Thorns and then go searching out like a questing beast or something stupid. Like, how do you lose?
Yeah, that is an insane turn. That might be worth playing instead of Nissa for turns like that, right? Probably not. Nissa's too busted.
Honestly, I don't even know at this point, but like that -2 ability is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Really, really, really powerful.
Even if you're just playing like, I don't know, like a green-black aggro deck, and this is your top end, like you cast a quest, you -2, cast a questing beast, go search out a rotting regisaur, like go search out the haunted nightmare card. Like that's a lot of power you're putting into
and then it's your turn 6, right? So you got 2 mana left over and you just play your Great Henge.
Yeah, like we just have everything. Like,
well, you just get your questing beast to go get your regisaur so that you can play your play your Great Henge.
That's just like,
Thanks, Vivian.
Yeah, and you made a 3/3.
That enables those turns is insane.
Yeah, and you made a 3/3 the first turn you played it. So you just put like you had at least 3 power in play, and you just put like up to 11 more in one turn. I don't know.
In a single turn, that's bananas.
Yeah.
And then you can still just cast stuff from the top of your deck. Like this card is pushed.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very good. Especially once Nissa rotates in the fall, then we won't have to worry about it competing anymore, and this card will take over as the best green mythic planeswalker in the format.
Yeah, what is the other Vivian Arcbows rotate out? I can't remember what's that. That card.
It's core set, so it'll rotate out in the fall.
Yeah, because that card is an underrated Vivian as well. That card's so good.
Yep. Yeah,
but yeah, this one looks like a bomb. I think this card looks incredible.
I agree. All right, this is our number 3, and as we do with every top 10, we always cheat for one slot, and we put a cycle. And of course, for Ikoria, there's no exception. At number 3, we put the Apex cycle because we, for the life of us, could not figure out how good these cards are going to be or decide which ones deserve to be on the list and which ones didn't.
They're all potentially insane and potentially none of them see play. I think the worst one is probably the Rug one, the Teamer one.
I'm inclined to agree that Illuna Apex of Wishes is probably the weakest, just because it's like more inherently random than the other.
Yeah, let's talk about this one first. So it's a 2 colorless and then Teamer colors, green, blue, red. It has mutate, 3 hybrid, green, red, blue, blue. It's a 6/6 flying trample. And whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent and put it onto the battlefield or into your hand. So it's potentially really powerful though too. But yeah, like you said, random.
Yeah, I don't know. Like 5 mana 6/6 flying trample is huge.
Like, that's a massive, massive creature.
I don't really know how to evaluate this one because like which deck would play this? Like
I have no idea.
There isn't really a Teamer Monsters deck that exists, but maybe there can be now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. I just feel like Teamer decks have an awkward time with this. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. I can't decide. Although with Vivian, it could be cool. Even if you don't mutate it, you can cast a 5-drop and go get a 4-drop.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say too, speaking of Vivian, sorry, before, the Teamer Adventures deck probably pretty sweet with her, right? Because she costs 1 and you can play creatures from the top of your, you have a lot of 1 cost is what I meant. And you can play creatures from the top of your deck. The Teamer deck is pretty cool with it, actually.
With Vivian.
Does she let you cast the adventure half? I don't think so, right? Because it's not a creature spell.
No, but you have a bunch of early cast things.
Yeah, get your Edgewall Innkeepers and stuff. Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, it's potential. But yeah, anyway, this Teamer Apex one I think is maybe the worst one. It's that or the Jeskai one, right? Are the weakest?
Yeah.
I actually thought the Jeskai one might be the strongest.
I can't tell.
Yes, the abilities on some of the other ones are really strong and over the top, but the Jeskai one is the cheapest and seems pretty strong. I don't know if you have a 2-drop sitting around or something.
I do think that's what it has going for it. Obviously, I think the Jeskai one plays very well with Sea Dasher Octopus, which we already talked about on our list. So you automatically get another cheap mutate creature to play with it. I just don't know like which Jeskai deck would want this effect, right? Like there isn't really a Jeskai spells matters deck in the format.
Not yet, but like
there will be.
You probably are just playing like a creature, like a Jeskai creature deck with red removal, and then like if you see Dasher this in combat and like get something out of the way and then draw another card, or like just put this onto your 3-drop to give like, I don't know, something else. Like you give Robber's a human. I don't know. But like just that it's cheap, and that if you flashback a spell that costs 3, you're really just paying for that spell and upgrading something else. Now you have a body that can keep flashing back spells.
Why don't we want to explain what this thing does, actually?
Okay, so this is Vadrock, Apex of Thunder. It costs 3 mana, Jeskai colors. It is a legendary creature, elemental dinosaur cat, 3/3. It has flying and first strike. It mutates for 4 for a generic hybrid blue-white and then red-red. And whenever this creature mutates, you may cast target non-creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. So it's sort of free flashbacks, probably in standard a removal spell or maybe even a draw spell.
Also, it can flash back to fairy.
To fairy.
That's nuts. Holy shit.
Oh,
I didn't even realize that.
I was going to be like, wait, what do you mean lightning strike? We're getting back to fairy.
I
assumed it was instant or sorcery.
Yeah, I also assumed it was instant or sorcery.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
We're getting back like Narset.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we get back like Narset or Teferi with this thing. Yeah.
That's pretty good. I'm interested now. You've got me.
Yeah, I can't decide. Yeah, it could be really good. The problem is, do Jeskai decks want creatures? Like, are we playing like, this weird like Jeskai deck with like, what do we have? Because we need some early creatures, but it could be just a Robber the Rich, like that card's really powerful.
The problem with Robber is that it's a human, yeah. So you can't mutate
right.
it.
My bad.
Yeah. I don't know. I think like I said, Octopus fits pretty well with this kind of strategy. And then I'm sure there are like cheaper flyers or something that we're just not thinking about on the spot that would be very good with this. I don't know. My favorite one out of this cycle is Nethroi, Apex of Death. It's the Abzan one. It's a 5 mana 5/5, costs 2, white, black, green. Cat Nightmare Beast, legendary creature, mutates for 7 mana, 4, a green-white hybrid, black, has Death Touch and Lifelink. Whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. I just love reanimating shit. This card is awesome.
Yeah, this card rules. I think it's probably my favorite. It's a toss-up between this and Brokos for me, I think, but this card is sick. It's so powerful. Yeah, it's 7 mana and 7 mana. 7 mana in standard in your mid-range creature deck, which is what you're doing with this card, right? Probably kind of somewhere between a graveyard deck plus a, sort of graveyard synergy mid-range deck. But this, you want your 7-drop to like essentially end the game or be so powerful and do so much. And yeah, this does it.
Yeah. And like what I really like about this card is like against the decks that they're too quick, that you're not going to get to 7 mana and mutate, you just want a 5 mana 5/5 lifelink body against those decks.
Yeah, I mean, this thing just Lyra against aggro decks, right?
Yeah, like it's just, its floor is actually pretty good in the matchups where you would kind of think this card would be bad.
Yeah, agree. Completely agree.
I wonder if we can like find a way, or if someone finds a way to mutate this thing without paying 7, like with some other mutate creature. Like this is in ECD colors. Like you just play this or mill it or however it ends up in your graveyard. And on the turn that ECD has its third chapter, you just bring this back, then like mutate something cheap onto it. Still gives you the trigger.
Yeah.
That's insane. Your ECD turn brings back like your whole graveyard.
Yeah. Oh, that's really, really dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, like you could play Brokos or Snapdax in that deck if you're just willing to only be able to cast those cards for their mutate cost because of the hybrid mana, right?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah, that's true. You can even play Snapdax. Yeah, that's really weird. You can play multiple of the Apex mutate creatures even in their off-color deck, if you were just planning to mutate, you can splash for the 4th color if you want. If you have something like a Gilded Goose, which I assume you're playing in your Metroid deck.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But it is something to think about.
I will say I'm nervous about this set because they just keep printing insanely broken things. But having said that, there's a lot of really, really interesting design features and brewing possibilities. And I think these creatures are a good example of that.
Yeah.
And you know what deck Nethroid's trigger would be absolutely insane in? Bringing back any number of creatures, total power 10 or less? High Alert.
You just bring back every creature in your pit? That's actually nuts. Oh my god.
Total power, 0.
Man.
Attack you for 50.
That's really funny.
That thing is insane. Yeah. What's kind of cool is you could play Brokos in the Nethroid deck too and mill stuff over. Like if you want to put stuff in your graveyard. Man, imagine there was a mulch in the format or like a Satyr Wayfinder. Good lord.
Like a good.
There's Corpse Turn, which is kind of a bad version.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are like bad enablers, but I don't know. The best enabler is just like Cavalier. Unfortunately.
Oh, Cavalier of Thorns, yeah, is just something else.
But yeah,
there's a mana dork that can mill cards.
Let's run through those the last two just quickly. Brokos Apex of Forever, 5 mana, 6/6 Trampler, costs 2, black, green, blue, mutates for 2, blue, black hybrid, green, green. Like I said, trample, and you may cast Brokos from your graveyard using its mutate ability. And then Snapdax Apex of the Hunt, 4 mana, 3/5 double striker, costs 1, red, white, black, mutates for 2, red, black hybrid, white, white, double strike. Whenever this creature mutates, deals 4 damage to target creature, planeswalker, and opponent controls, and you gain 4 life.
I think both these cards are also potentially very good.
Yeah.
I think that Snapdax, at first when I read it, I was like, Mardu garbage, whatever. But the more I think about it, this card does so much. It's essentially, the mutate costs 5, sure, but it's a Flame Tongue Kavu that gains life. It's also essentially a 6/5, like it's a 3/5 double strike. Like, that's big, and that's a really impactful turn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, play this, kill your blocker, like mutate this onto something, kill your blocker, attack you for 1 million.
Yeah, I also, like you, dismissed it because it's Mardu and those colors suck. But this thing's huge. Like, yeah, the fact that you can just mutate onto something, like kill a creature, gain 4 life, and then just attack with a double striking threat. Like, I don't know. I think I just like undervalue how good mutate is going to be in a lot of scenarios.
It's like so hard to evaluate because it pseudo gives things haste. It's like weird amounts of triggers, like re-triggering it. Like I'm just gonna have to play with it a bunch to actually understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can set up some crazy turns with Snapdax, I think. Some really busted turns with that card. And just the fact that it also answers Planeswalkers, I think, is huge. Brokos has got to be just like a graveyard enabler card, right? We're looking for milling ourselves and then just cast this thing, something like, I think something like Timurit Calls the Dead could be good. Uro is good with this card. Like in a deck with Uro, like a bug mid-range deck where this thing just suits up your Gilded Goose and attacks for 6,
Can you mutate onto tokens?
As long as they're not humans.
Yeah.
So with Timurit, it just like makes a zombie that you can then put Brokos on?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just suiting up a Gilded Goose seems nuts. Like Gilded Goose, the stock on Gilded Goose just goes through the roof if these cards are playable, right?
Even like Paradise Druid. You just know your mutate's going to resolve because it's hexproof, so you're going to get the ability out of it.
I think Gilded Goose is funnier. I just can't wait to, in a board stall, pay 2 and tap my 6/6 to make
to make food.
Yeah, it keeps all the abilities.
The goose is loose. Just a 6/6 trampling goose coming in hot with flying.
All right. Let's we've been on number 3 for a while. Let's hop over to number 2. This one, another mythic. Shocker. Fiend Artisan. 2 mana 1/1. Costs 2 black-green hybrid mana. It's a nightmare creature. Fiend Artisan gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard, and it has an activated ability, which is X and a green-black hybrid mana. Tap it, sacrifice another creature, Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. I think this card has so much potential, and it could fit in a bunch of different strategies. And I really just don't know where to even start with this one.
Yeah, this is a card that either goes in a bunch of decks and can be really kind of useful as a utility creature, or it only goes in one because it's too slow and clunky otherwise. You know what I mean? I think that's the path for this card. I think it probably ends up the latter, where it ends up in a pretty specific deck that's trying to put a bunch of stuff in its graveyard. So no matter what, it's just a 2-mana, like 5/5, in which case it's just bananas. And then, can enable, just digging for certain creatures and finding anything you want by sacrificing, tokens or doing whatever. So yeah, but it just depends if it's too slow or not to spend that mana. But this card has a huge potential.
Yeah, like I think one of the first decks I thought about this card slotting into is something like Rakdos Sacrifice. Obviously, it plays very well with sacrificing Cat, and you can go get a Mayhem Devil or any other, threat that you might need to find at that certain time. You could play it in just like black-green mid-range, sacrificing maybe some of your smaller threats when they're not relevant anymore, making it bigger and go getting something like huge. I feel like this is a card that like Jund Food probably wants to play, right? Yeah, like probably. Even something like, this isn't really a deck right now, but Mono Black Devotion, you could just play this instead of Yark's Fenlurker.
Oh, and then start going to get Gray Merchants.
Exactly, right? Like, and it's 2 black pips. It's everything you want.
Yeah, that's actually sick. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some pretty useful, lots of good cards you can sacrifice that leave around value. Like, sacrificing is one of the most powerful things you can do in Magic, I think.
Yeah, and I like that, like, you can just, later in the game, you can just tutor essentially whatever the hell you want, as long as you have a creature to sacrifice, right?
Yeah, and then, at this point, if it's late game, this thing's just going to be a 2-mana 10/10, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you just attack. Right. It's massive. Like, Don't tap it to search for anything. Just smash. Yeah,
I kind of like that it has skill testing built into it in that regard, and that you'll have to make the decision of tutoring versus attacking sometimes. It's pretty cool. But yeah, this card has lots of potential. I think it's super interesting. One of the more unique cards in the set.
Yeah, I love it.
It's going to be something that, at least early, I think people are going to make the mistake of like attacking into, and then it's going to block and like activate, and it's going to be one bigger than they expected it to be. And,
you can't do that because you can only do it as a sorcery. But
okay.
Yeah, they were safe on that one. Yeah, you can't have this effect be instant speed.
No, it's the same thing with like every birthing pod effect they print.
Yeah, I just missed that. My bad.
Sorcery.
Okay, ignore.
Yeah, I thought that too. I double check that every time they print like a pod style thing. I double check every time. I'm like, can I instant speed this? Because and they know they won't ever give that to us, I think.
Imagine you could just pod a creature in response to removal. That'd be insanity.
Yeah, that's why. Because it just shuts down entire decks.
Yeah. All right. Adam, you can take the honors of number 1 because I know this is your favorite card.
Oh, yeah. I love this card. I think this card's so fun. I think it might end up enabling an entire control deck built around it. I do think it's possible. This card is Yidaro Wandering Monster. It seems so fitting for the set. It's a big turtle. I like turtles,
Dinosaur turtle, number 1.
Yeah, 7 mana. So it's 7 mana, but that's not why we're playing it. That don't matter. 2 red, 5 for an 8/8 trample haste. And it has cycling for a colorless and a red. But here's the kicker. When you cycle Yidaro Wandering Monster, you shuffle it into your library from your graveyard. If you cycled a card named Yidaro Wandering Monster 4 or more times this game, you put it onto the battlefield from your graveyard instead.
Yeah, this card is awesome. I love everything about it.
So I'm just going to play this card in 4 Planar Cleansing, and I'll figure out the rest later. And I already know what deck I'm playing day 1 in Standard. I already got it solved. I don't even have to think about it. I'm just going to Planar Cleansing people with Yidaros and just sit there and Planar Cleansing over and over and just keep reshuffling my deck. And I mean, what else what do you want from me? What am I supposed to do about this card? Like, I have no choice. I have to play this card. It's such a funny win condition for a control deck.
Yeah.
Its cycling is fine. Like, cycling is really good, and it just enables you to, it's essentially just a thing twice that's eventually going to kill them. And that it has haste is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there are times where you just cast it for 7 and just attack, if you need to. You probably cycle it though, but if you need to get something off the board, you can just attack for 8. It's an 8/8 trample 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other thing is that because cycling is instant speed, like this says trample and haste, it doesn't say flash, but this 8/8 is going to be showing up like at instant speed once you've cycled.
Oh yeah, you can get people on blocks. You can do a lot with this card.
All right, so listen here. This is one of the decks I'm going to brew up for the early access event next week. We're going to play Temur Elementals. We're going to have Song of Creation in the deck, and we're going to have 4 Yadaro. Because we're going to draw a bunch of cards with our Risen Reefs. So we're going to draw our Yadaros over and over so we can cycle them really quick, as well as with Song of Creation, so we can just make a whole bunch of 8/8 trample hasters. And it's going to be awesome. And it's one of the first decks I'm going to try for sure.
Ooh, that's interesting. Another way to do it would be to play something like Song of Creation, and then so you could play something like Song of Creation, Escape into the Wilds, ramp cards, and then this, and then just opt and stuff with Song of Creation, and just try and get through your entire, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it has to be a deck,
Storms,
right?
Yeah, you play Storm's Wrath if you want, Wilderness Wreck or whatever, and you just plow through your entire deck super fast. I don't know,
there's something broken there, and we're gonna do our best to find it.
Yeah, we're gonna end up playing some bad decks with it, but what are you gonna do?
You guys are thinking way too reasonably. I'm playing red black. I'm playing this, and I'm playing Clackbridge Troll, and I'm making hasty 8/8. What are they gonna do? Let me draw a card with Troll? It's just gonna draw Yadaro.
Yeah,
you're true. Yeah,
it'll just draw more 8/8s. Yeah, this is obviously kind of a meme first pick in the set. Normally, in the past, we've picked things like, Hydra, Crisis, Uro, Kroxa as our number ones. And we didn't do that this time, but this card is just so hilarious to me. I think it's a really interesting mechanic. It's a self-enabler win condition for decks that lets you cycle. I don't know. I think this card's really cool design. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's actually going to be a tier 1 deck, but I think it's just a really hilarious win condition. This is the mythic rare version. It's a rare, I realize, but I'm saying it's the mythic rare version of playing Pack Rat or what are some of the other cards that you can have any amount in your deck? You just have a bunch of Yadaros. They just keep coming back. I don't know. It's hilarious to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the Godzilla version of Yadaro is awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's so good.
Yeah. So that wraps up our top 10.
I'm trying to think. Did we miss anything? We probably did. So please let us know.
We always miss something, but
there's another list of top things that we missed that I'm going to go through quickly. And that is some patrons. We are super thankful to all of our patrons for supporting us and supporting the show. So just want to give a shout out to Tim, Frank, Daniel, Michael, Andrew, Phil, IRL Green Creature, Josh, Mike, Michael again, John, Connor, Kevin, James, Trevor, and Aaron, and every other patron. It's been a while since we did a patron shout out, but it has not been a while since we've appreciated the support.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is the most heartwarming thing still to me, that people sort of appreciate the content we put out. I love, we did it for years and people kept yelling at us to make a Patreon. So we finally got around to it and have appreciated the support ever since. We love putting on tournaments for our patrons and playing and talking, testing decks. Discord is the Discord community is probably one of the coolest things I think about this podcast, and having tournaments and playing tournaments with people because of it. It's just been a wonderful experience. And the patrons we have are the people who have enabled all this to happen. So yeah, big shout outs.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to everyone for supporting us so far. Be on the lookout next week, April 15th, Ikoria streamer early access event. We're going to be live for pretty much the entire day. Head on over to twitch.tv/disorganized Wizards Club to watch us brew some new decks with Ikoria Layer of Behemoths. It's going to be a ton of fun. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/DWC Podcast. Be sure to check out wizardtower.com. And however you listen to the show, whether it's Podbean, iTunes, any podcast app, leave a review, rate the podcast, share it with your friends. Everything helps keep this thing growing, bring it to new listeners. And on that note, thank you all for listening. We'll catch you all next week.
Do you know how the humans of Ikoria are prepared for all of the different weather and all the different trials?
How?
They have a lot of layers.
Oh my God.
God.